Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Anae Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you'll have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey vet rehabbers, in today's episode I chat with Lindy Dekker about her journey with TTouch. Lindy shares how she's learned this technique and the profound impact it's had on her life with animals. I can't believe we're just about into February. Time is really flying by already this year. February holds a special place in our hearts because Onlinepethealth hosted its first ever live webinar on February the 7th, 2017. Now this year we're celebrating our 8th anniversary, and I'd love for you to join us because we are going to mark the occasion. We've partnered together with the Veterinary Academy of Higher Learning to bring you 2 incredible webinars which we are gifting to the entire community. Even if you're not an Onlinepethealth member, you can watch them for free. So all you have to do is head over to onlinepethealth.com/gift to sign up. And this is what's in store. Rachel Kane will be presenting her lecture on the power of muscles. She'll explore muscle structure, function, and anatomy, emphasizing their critical role in rehabilitation. Steve Adair will dive into regenerative rehabilitation and how it's reshaping the field. I really can't wait to see all of you online for these informative sessions. A quick word from our sponsor before we dive in. Nada first developed her courses at the Colorado State University, where she started the Medical Acupuncture for Veterinarian Certificate program in 1998. In so doing, Dr. Robinson developed a science-based platform for veterinary acupuncture, the first of its kind. Today, Curricle Vet offers a comprehensive curriculum in integrative medicine with a rational, evidence-supported foundation. The courses include medical acupuncture, photomedicine, botanical medicine, medical massage, and integrative rehabilitation. You can discover Curricle Vet at curricle.org. Right, over to my chat with Lindy. Hey Lindy, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Lindy, for the listeners, won't you tell them how you got into the field of TTouch?
Well, it's a tangled web, basically, because I grew up always with animals and actually ended up studying biochemistry and microbiology and genetics, but always had a love for animals. And then when we moved to Johannesburg, I started riding again. I started riding when I was 10 and then left it. You know, life got in the way in school and everything like that. And then in the end, I started riding again when a friend's kids started riding. And so when I was riding, eventually somebody said to me, oh, hey, there's this course coming on in January that they do funny stuff with horses. Do you want to come? So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come. And I haven't looked back since then. So we had like 30 people on a course where there were the most remarkable changes in one horse in particular that just absolutely moved us and stunned us. And that sort of got me onto the path of TTouch, especially because it's so nice in that, you know, less is more. So you don't have to do a whole lot to, you know, as we always joke and say, it's for lazy people or for busy people.
So for a lot of us, we know the term, like we've heard TTouch, but we don't actually know what it is and how it was developed. So won't you share with us exactly what it is and who developed it and like how it's got to where it is today?
Okay, so probably the most difficult question about TTouch is, what is it? It originally started in, close on 50 years ago with an amazing woman called Lindy Dekker, who at 87 is still riding.
Wow.
And she was a very accomplished horsewoman, and then she got a bit sort of cheesed off with the idea of the way people treated horses, and so she thought she'd start doing human stuff and went on a course with Moshe Feldenkrais, doing Feldenkrais work. And while she was lying on the floor, Moshe Feldenkrais had said, the body can learn in one lesson if there's no pain, no fear, and no fear of pain. And her, as she puts it, her ears pricked up, and she thought, oh, that's interesting. Also, if you do something non-habitual. So she thought about that, and then she started doing non-habitual things with horses. This work actually started with horses. Unlike most animal modalities, which start with humans and move to horses, we started with horses, then other animals, and then eventually people. So she started working with animals and found that it made a huge difference. And so basically the philosophy that we use is it's a really gentle form of work. It comprises body work and groundwork. So from that point of view, it's quite different from a lot of these body work modalities, all the different things that people do with animals. In that we really incorporate groundwork and use the awareness through movement, which comes from Feldenkrais. And so probably the best description I could use would be it's a gentle way of working with animals, which allows them to find their true potential and their potential for perfection. We can't all be perfect, but certainly we have that potential, and helping them to understand what they're doing and give them choices and help them to make better choices. So, I think one of our TTouch people who is a vet, she gave a talk the other day and she put it so nicely. She was saying, the body is always trying to heal itself. And we just need to support it and not interfere, because we tend to, as people, we love interfering. And so just supporting it and helping it to understand what it's doing. And actually, that very first course that I did, something which really made me prick up my ears, was a quote from Moshe Feldenkrais, who said, when you know what you do, you can do what you want. And for me, that was so profound, because it really helps to understand that we help our animals to understand what they're doing so that they can change things. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you can't change it. And so being able to give them that opportunity to become aware of what they're doing and offer them other choices, that makes a huge difference. And then we can, the body can then say, oh, this wasn't so sore, because very often, particularly animals that have had injuries and things, they'll have a holding pattern because of the pain. Even if there isn't pain anymore, you still have that fear of pain. And so working really gently and helping them to work without that fear of pain, they can start being much more functional. So helping our animals to become more functional, especially in our world, is really what this work is all about. And about, and in the process of that, in the process of watching our animals and getting feedback from them and changing things if it isn't working for them, you build a bond of trust, because we emphasize a lot the observation. So really looking at the animal in front of you, seeing what they do, how they move, etc. And then as we do stuff with them, we can see whether it's easy or hard and make it easier so that we set them up for success. That's kind of the short form.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. As you're talking, you were saying that it starts with some body work and then the groundwork. And, obviously that's so clear for me with horses. But then I think to like companion animals like dogs and cats, and I think, well, like, how does that groundwork look?
Okay, so very often, doesn't always start with body work. Very often we start with groundwork, actually, because particularly if an animal is a little uptight, movement helps to release that tension. And so what we do is we have a number of elements that we set out on the ground, which is just things like poles and different surfaces and, weaving cones and anything you might desire. And we just move slowly, because one of the things we do is we work with the nervous system. We're not, when we're doing the body work, we're working with the nervous system. So we're moving the skin, not doing any kind of massage. Okay. So one of the students once coined the phrase, which is nice and easy, is TTouch is a message, not a massage. Okay. Because we're talking to the nervous system and we're saying to the nervous system, hey, this is where you're at. And the nervous system can then organize the muscles to change things and so on. So we set up what might look like an obstacle course, but we call it the playground of higher learning, because the point is it's not about making them do it. It's about seeing how they're functioning, how they're managing, and then helping them if it's difficult. So one of our catchphrases is, if it's not working, change it. So if we find that they find it difficult walking through narrow poles, we'll make the poles wider. And, so things like that. If they find it difficult going over poles, we'll change the direction or do something different to make it easier, because we want them to be successful. Because for everybody, success breeds success. So, and we will then, in the process of doing that groundwork, very often then stop and do a little bit of body work to say, hey, do you remember where you are in space, etc. And we might put some body wraps on as well, which are these elasticated bandages, which we use in a different way from physios, in that we have them fairly loose, so that it's almost like a biofeedback rather than a support bandage. And so that gives the animal, again, that feedback of, oh my goodness, my hind legs are over there. And so it's really helpful for things like proprioception and so on. Also things like walking over different surfaces. That's so useful for proprioception, because all those, a lot of the proprioceptive receptors are under the paws. So
one of the things that I can remember about Teddington Touch, and I remember actually having a client who done one of the courses, and I might be like completely off now, so just suddenly this memory came into my head, and she was talking about how she moved her fingers and did the movement, and how you don't make a full circle, so you never complete the circle. Is that true, or is that from somewhere else that I've got that?
No. In fact, we do a circle and a quarter.
So maybe that was what it was. It was more than a circle. I probably remembered wrong. Yes, I remember thinking you don't stop at the circle. Okay, yes, a circle and a quarter. Right, tell us about that.
So doing a circle and a quarter, and the thing is that there are two things. One is, if you actually do it on yourself and you just do like a circle on your arm, if you just do a full circle, it doesn't feel finished for some or other reason. While if you do a circle and a quarter, it closes that circle. And also, when we're working with the TTouch, we're moving the skin, and we always start on a bit of a lift, okay, the lift being from gravity, and we end with that slight lift, so that kind of finishes that circle off. So if you I'm doing a circle and a quarter, and you can, it starts with gravity and then ends up as a slight lift. Does that explain things better?
Yeah. That explains better. Tell me about some of the cases that you've treated, some unusual cases where, you spoke about that first course that you did, the amazing responses that you had. Like, what were the animals struggling with, and how did the treatment help them?
Well, this particular horse that we had was, poor thing, was called Fire Eyes, and he was a saddler who had been pretty well abused in terms of being trained by having a dark stable and having firecrackers thrown inside the stable so that he could come out looking perky, so to speak. And he was a little bit too perky for them after that, not surprisingly. And so this poor horse was terrified of everything. And when the first time they brought him out, it was in a 20 by 60 arena. And if he was on the one end of the arena and we were at the other end of the arena and you were behind him, if you just said something, he was gone. He was so terrified. And so what we did was work with, in fact, two people, one leading on either side. And so that gives him a bit of a framework of where he's going if you have a person on either side. And then literally all Edie Jane did was come from behind with a treat. So she'd walk up saying that she was coming. She would get him to just turn his head, give him a treat, and go back again. And so they did a little bit of that. And at the end of, I think, 2 days, or maybe 3, he was actually able to stop and turn around and see what was coming. And there were 30 people in the corner all crying because it was so moving to see how little, and just that understanding of, we understand that you are really afraid, and let's make it easier for you so that you can actually make a decision rather than have that instinctive just flight mode. So working very gently, we keep them out of that flight mode and help them to think about what they're doing. And that's the whole thing about that no fear and no pain and no fear of pain, because they are getting the chance to then engage their brains and think about what they're doing. So that was the initial course. But the interesting thing is very often we do work which has got absolutely nothing to do with the problem that the person asks you for. So I remember one of my case studies was a little Jack Russell who went completely berserk in the car. And all I did was actually some groundwork at home and a little bit of body work in the process of doing the groundwork, just helping that little dog become more balanced on his feet. And then eventually the people said they were busy cleaning their car, and he just jumped in and sat there for a while, jumped out, and then they took him for a short drive, and he was absolutely fine because he'd just been so unbalanced and fearful that he would go berserk in the car. So very often it's got nothing to do with the actual kind of problem as such as just helping them become balanced. So it can be like, oh my goodness, don't you want to see what's wrong? No, let's just work on the animal and help them to become better balanced. Because the thing is, when you become physically balanced, you will become emotionally and mentally balanced too. So that's the principle on which we work. And the great thing is that we can influence the physical. And in the process, we can help with behavioral problems at the same time, because just by influencing that physical, we will influence the mental and emotional.
Are those the main cases that you're seeing? So like someone's coming to you with a behavioral problem that their horse or their dog or cat has got?
Very often, yes, very often, but also recovery from surgery. And a classic one is dogs that have had cruciate ligament operations. And the vet has said they're fine, and yet they're still not walking on that leg. And so we do this really slow walk, because when you work slowly, the nervous system pays attention. So we help them to work really slowly. And very often, I know a number of times when I've worked with the cruciate ligament patients, is I work them near a wall where on the side where the operation was, so that they feel supported on that side. And then just doing slow work with a little bit of touches in between to say, here's your body. And it can make a huge difference. And then they go, oh, I can actually stand on this foot. Oh my goodness, that it works and there's no pain. So very often it can be that kind of thing, just to help them that final hurdle of actually getting away from that fear of pain, because the vet has cleared them and said there's no pain, but the dog doesn't know that.
How do you handle cases that come to you that are aggressive?
We like to call them reactive, okay, rather than aggressive. And we found that 99% of reactivity is fear-based. So what we then do is help that animal to feel safe. So we do exercises where we help. If it's just a one-on-one, then again, we'll work on physical balance, okay? Because the more balanced you are, we have the three selves where we say, if you have self-carriage, you will automatically influence self-control and self-confidence. And as soon as you have that self-carriage, that self-control can start to kick in, and then there's no need to be so reactive. And we found it makes a huge difference. Also, just making sure that when we're working with them, that they can feel safe, because you can't learn if you don't feel safe. So chucking them in and saying they've got to just deal with it is not going to help. And at the same time, when we're looking at them, we can very often see where there are tension patterns, so we can help to release those tension patterns to make the physical more comfortable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. How do you see vet rehab therapists using this as part of their toolbox?
Well, as I said, just doing some of the work can make a big difference. And it can be, sometimes massage is too painful. So doing these really light touches where we're just moving the skin, we're literally just moving the skin, can help to release tension patterns quite remarkably. And also, one of the tools that we have is using wraps, and those can make a big difference in helping also reactive dogs, nervous dogs, scared of thunder, blah, 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 whatever it is. It's always helpful to try a wrap. So, for example, at my vet, I introduced the wrap, and the nurses would then, if they had a dog coming in sort of, fearful and skating in on their bum because they didn't want to get in, they'd just pop a little wrap on. And sometimes that can make a big difference. I also used it, actually, there was a cat at the vet who had been operated on, and the anesthetic went wrong. So the cat survived, but when I first saw it, it was a rigid, cat, but you could hardly tell it was cat. It was completely rigid. Everything was in spasm. And I started just doing light touches to release that spasm, and to taught the nurse what to do. And after a couple of days, the cat could move again. And then we had to teach her to walk again. And we used wraps there also, because those wraps can help them to get a biofeedback definition of where their body is. So I can see that vet rehabbers could use it very well in terms of just helping them to understand where their body is in space. And so that makes it so much easier to then start doing the right movements, etc.
No, but I'm just thinking of actually something. Do you know the Thunder shirt? Is
Yes.
that Tellington Touch base?
Yes. It came from Tellington Touch, and then they started, because initially with Tellington Touch we use body wraps, or you can use an old t-shirt, kids t-shirt, and you turn it the wrong way around and you make a little knot at the top and it's all good. And then Thunder Shirt developed it, and it has been very successful for a number of dogs. The only objection that we have is that they really they suggest that you put it on really tight, and for some dogs that's not comfortable. So again, we're always talking about looking at the individual. So you have to see, how does your dog feel about it? And sometimes just putting it on loosely can be fine. The difficulty in like the Highveld here in Joburg is it's usually incredibly hot before a thunderstorm. So putting on a thick jacket can be a little bit overwhelming, you know. But it varies. It depends on the dog.
For the listeners who don't know what it is, it's like a material, like t-shirt, that is very stretchy, and then it's got like Velcro. So you sort of pull the stretch around its stomach and it Velcros, and then another one comes from the back around the stomach. So and I think it's even got straps in the front. So it literally incorporates the whole chest and the whole back. It's like a compression suit, basically. You could explain it like that. And also the thing I think also where you're from is that sometimes the thunder and lightning comes quite quickly, and ideally you need it before it's going to happen. So as the rain starts coming, I actually used it quite successfully with my Jack Russell. We don't get thunder and lightning often here, but when it was thunder and lightning and there was a storm, she got really, really nervous. And I must say she loved it, and she loved the pressure. So to make it really, really tight, and it really, really helped her. So.
Yeah, I mean, I had a dog as well she was somewhat round, and the only thunder shirt I had was a little bit tight for her, but she was very happy when it was on tight. She was fine. I had another dog who, if you put anything tight on him, he freaked out. So, as I say, it's up to the individual, and obviously you accustom them to it before not in the beginning of a thunderstorm, because then they will associate that with the thunder, but helping them to feel comfortable, doing some groundwork, having it on, taking it off, putting it on again, etc. And I know a number of people where they had thunder shirts, and their dogs would, when they sensed a thunderstorm coming, they'd go to the drawer where the thunder shirts were, like, "Mom, could you please
put it on?" Yeah,
put it on. Yeah. So it depends on the dog, but yes, a thunder shirt or a wrap or a t-shirt can make a huge difference for thunderstorms and lightning.
So where would a veterinary health therapist go to be able to learn more about this? Now, remembering that our listeners are international, so is this something that is all over the world? Maybe you could just share, because you're in South Africa, for South Africans, and then where somebody else could reach out to find somebody in other countries around the world.
Well, we actually have a learning platform as such, which covers lots of online courses, and that is learn.ttouch.ca, CA being Canada, okay? And that talks about all the courses that are online courses, because, of course, since COVID, we've been doing lots of online courses. In South Africa specifically, we have a website, ttouch.co.za. And obviously they could contact me through their website, info.ttouch.co.za or lindy.ttouch, whichever they prefer. But on the learn.ttouch.ca, there is, I think there is a description of to become an associate, because you might not want to become a full practitioner, but you might want to become an associate, in which case you do obviously less courses and things, but then you have that under your belt to use as a toolbox as part of your rehabbing.
And then how do the courses work? So to become a full practitioner, how many levels are there?
When we did in-person only, okay, you had to do 6 practitioner trainings and 10 case studies to become a practitioner. And then you could do another 2 courses and another 5 case studies, and there was possibility of becoming a practitioner 1. Of course, that's never guaranteed. You have to prove that you are useful at the work. And a level 1 practitioner is allowed to give 1-day courses. Okay. A practitioner is allowed to charge for their work. Until they become a practitioner, they're not allowed to charge for their work. And then from there you go to a practitioner level 2, and then practitioner level 3, and then if you are asked to, you can become an instructor. But that's not, you don't actually apply for it. It's like, we think you'd be good as an instructor, and the level 3 as well generally. So it's quite a rigorous process. Initially we used to say, you couldn't become a practitioner in less than 2 years, because it takes time to soak up the philosophy and working with animals and so on. We have found, though, since we started doing the online courses, that we've had a number of people who've gone through only online courses and become practitioners that way, because what they do then is attend courses and then send videos of themselves doing the work, and then we give them feedback and so on. And it's actually been really successful.
So for those of you that are interested, all those websites and email addresses, we'll put them in the podcast description. Lindy, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. It's been absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
What advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about doing TTouch?
Well, try it. You could be amazed. I mean, I find it amazing. Sometimes I give somebody a 1-day course, and it changes their life, because it just gives a different way of looking at animals, and it can make such a difference. You can, the greatest thing is it's less is more. So you don't have to know every touch that there is or anything. You just do a little bit, but it's the way you do it, the attitude and the intuition and the way you think about it, that can make such a huge difference. So it's great, because it really doesn't require a long time of, spending 3 hours working on your dog. You can spend 5 minutes and it can make a huge change.
I think it's also about the connection, right?
Yes.
Connection to develop, and that's where the healing happens.
Absolutely. And just that no fear and no pain and no fear of pain, and doing non-habitual things can make the whole world change.
Love it. Thank you for your time, Lindy. It's been great chatting.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Curacao Vet. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free, so please go and check them out at curacao.org. Please also don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit. It's on Saturday the 8th of November in 2025. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Onlinepethealth members, you get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.